I'm using a dental pick to, now the seal, again, it's a press type fitting, and I actually started to get it. See, this is the edge of the seal itself. Now what I've done is I've taken this and I've slipped it in. You can see that possibly the inner soft part of the seal, I pierce the inner soft part, and then I kind of turn the tool so that it catches the back side, and I just gently start pulling. Easy. I got some of it over here. It just started to walk away. There we go. There we go. It moved again. I'm going to go gentle because there is a bearing behind it. What this rides on is a bearing inside the 6th gear. And if you're not careful, who knows? Who really knows what would happen back there? I don't want to find out the hard way. So, you can see it. Well, it is leaking anyway, but obviously it's going to be leaking far more. And once the seal comes out, I can imagine, there it goes. It moved a little bit more. I got a little bit more of it out. See it? It's walking out. Keep going around. Take your time. There she is. That's it. Don't rush. You can see it's starting to really leak oil now. I'm definitely putting some pressure on it. Ah, yes. Yes. At which point we'll also be able to see, well, maybe not as much as I think we'd like, but beautiful. Alright, that's the seal. The inner bearing looking clean. That's the culprit right there. Okay, here we are. I have the part, the seal. I actually pressed it onto, or pushed it at least, onto the... just trying to get this situated here. Pushed it onto the shaft, and I pushed it up to the shaft a little bit. You know what I found was that this piece of Schedule 40 that I used as a covering for when I took the primary nut off actually fits clean right up to the seal. It's great fit, and it will make a really nice press with a slight tap. What I'm doing now is just going around and pushing a little bit to start the seal sides, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of gently, super gently, tap it into place using this piece of Schedule 40. And matter of fact, I've already kind of started the edges. Yeah, that's good. Alright, we're back at finishing up this seal. It's driven on a little bit. A little bit of a high and low spot here and there, but we're heading in. It's heading into the into home. I'm using a piece of 1-inch Schedule 40. This looks actually really nice right now. Okay, at this point you want to be cautious that you don't drive that seal too far past the flush edge of the race itself. I'm just checking it, see if it comes out, pushes out on this little piece of zip tie. That actually looks really good, really good. So that being the case, at this point I'm going to go ahead and clean up the seal area here, and I am also going to put the sprocket, main sprocket, back on the bike. Alright, here in the book on page, again this is the Dyna 2006 manual, on page 6-21, install pilot, and that's the piece here. Use main shaft lock nut wrench, tighten sprocket to 100 foot-pounds initial torque. Loosen the sprocket nut to remove that initial torque, then tighten the sprocket lock nut to 35 pounds. So you set the socket, you set it up with 100 pounds of torque. You back that off a little bit, then you reset it to 35 pounds of torque, alright, until you get a mate with the lock nut screw plates, the plate screws themselves, right around 35 pounds, and you set it up right there. So again, 100 pounds initial torque that pushes the sprocket onto this assembly, sets it up, and then you back it off and then reset it for 35 pounds. Alright, I do want to get this tool. Again, this tool was lent to me, the 2.5-inch nut driver for this primary main drive nut. I want to get this back to my dealer, who was so gracious enough. Ocean State Harley Davidson was really gracious. Barbara and Keith and Anthony there at the Exeter branch, very gracious in lending this to me, so I want to make sure I get it back to him for tomorrow. That being the case, red Loctite, get the sprocket on. Sprocket, where's the sprocket? Hey, sprocket. Get a belt. Now, there we go. Okay, so that's on. I'll get that set up with about 100 pounds and then back it off to where we can get about 35 pounds, so that the holes, which you can, maybe you can see it right here, hole 1, hole 2 is going to match up with the plate, the locking plate, and we will go from there. Okay, let me do a little bit more cleanup and we'll get back to it. We'll continue. Again, this gets torqued to 100 pounds, then it gets backed off, and then it gets retorqued to 35 pounds, starting I'd say around 35 pounds, until you find a place where the plate lines up with your holes properly. Anything over 35 pounds, you know, just a few pounds, I don't think is going to cause you much grief. But if you end up creeping up quite a bit, then you want to back off and try again. That being the case, again, the belt goes on first. Get that lined up. It's a loose belt. The rear wheel's locked with a brake. And once I get this set up a little bit, I'll tighten up this belt a little bit more firmer. grab to the 100 pounds. I have a again, this tool on a torque wrench. Just that simple. Make sure there's enough to kind of go around. And I did clean the nut. I cleaned up the nut and the gear itself, all the threads. I cleaned those with a small wire wheel. The bearing is set. The bearing that was leaking is set. I'm going to go ahead and just use that as a protector, just a little bit. Keep this straight. So I'm just going to put a little leverage on it initially so I can tighten up the belt. Okay. Now I'm just going to put a little tension on this belt. If I knew where the socket was, let's see. It's a little late and I'm working a bit by the seat of my pants. Okay, here we go. Just going to put a little tension on that so that, not much, just want it to, there we go, that's fine. Alright. At this point I can go ahead and go for the 100 pounds. 100 pounds of torque on the main sprocket nut. Okay, that's 100 pounds, and using the breaker bar. And when I take it back, I'm only going to take it back to right there, just so it breaks free. Alright, now I'll set up again, back on the torque bar. I'll set this down to where is 35? Let's see. 35, 35, 35. 20, 20, 20, 30. Let's see, that's, well, I'm just going to go a little over because I can't exactly see. Well, that seems to be 40. Let's see, about 40. Alright, I'm going to check 40. Seems to be about 40. And go from there. Alright, I'm actually going to just go and see, just for the sake of it, what 45 to somewhere around 50 looks like. Right. I'm just going to leave it there. It's somewhere around 35 to 45 pounds. I'll see if the plate sets up somewhere close to the holes, or do I need to back it off? It's not going to work there, and it will work right there. Alright, that being the case, I'll go ahead and set up with this. Little red Loctite on these. That's plenty. Again, this is 3/16. And that sets up nicely, okay. And just before I snug this up, really snug it up anyway, I am going to actually turn, see if the locking plate will turn, which it will not. Okay. That being the case, I'll just put a little pressure on these. Alright, here we are. What we have now is the main shaft nut is installed. This is torqued down to about 100 pounds, backed off, and then retorqued down to between, I've got it, I think, close to about 45 pounds. The book says 35, I've got it maybe cranked down a little bit more. The lock plate then is installed, and these support lock nuts are, the book says 84 to 108 inch pounds, which converts out to about 7 to 9 foot-pounds. Alright, 7 to 9 foot-pounds. With that being the case, that's all done, all buttoned up. I've loosened up the belt a little bit, so there's no tension on it. I'll put the bike on its side stand for the evening, see if I get any leaks. In the meantime, what's going on over here is the shifter seal, which I've already begun to remove a little bit. Again, at this point I've removed the shifter arm, which you do need to fully remove this bolt in order for the arm to slide over the assembly. You do have to remove the bolt. Alright, so take the bolt completely out, or else it locks it on. Alright, once the bolt is off, go ahead, take that off. You'll see a plate, actually you'll see this assembly behind it, a washer and split ring. This is one of the smaller split rings. Boy, I'll tell you, I can't seem to find my small split ring plier. So what I did was actually, you know what, I used this dental pick. It's come in handy for a lot of things. If you don't have one, you can get one lots of different places. Grab yourself a dental pick, and you will be glad you did for these small jobs. Dental pick, and I think even a nail. Took the other side. What do we got here? Yeah, I used the nail on the other side, and use that to open it up and get it off. And it was tedious, you know, but it got done, so it wasn't that bad. Again, then once that's off, take this off, and behind it you'll see a recessed seal. Now the seal is actually out a little bit because I've already had and pulled it out some, but you'll also notice, maybe depending on your bike, your shaft may move in and out a little bit. Alright, the seal, this is the new seal going on. The new seal has kind of a raised edge on the outside. This is facing out. And the new seal, this raised edge, as what I've noticed anyways, the way this was set up, this one here, when the shifter arm was actually pulled out to its furthest position, that outside edge of the seal was covering the shaft of what you could see inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and set that back up about the same way. That being the case, to get this out, what I did was I simply took the dental pick, I slipped it in underneath like so, kind of like I did for this seal, the center pulley, center shaft seal. I slipped it in, a little bit of a wiggle, I turned upward, and there it is, that's better. just kind of, there we go, popped it out. Alright. Alright. That being the case, that looks good. Go ahead and slip that on over. Give it a little press, at least to flush it up in the case itself. There we go. Okay. What have I got? A little less. I'm just playing around with stuff I have, just to see what this would set up with. Alright. Pen. Done. At least flush to the case, it's done. I'm going to recess it now with, I'm not sure what, but I know I should be delicate with whatever I recess it with. How about the and again, what I noticed was, and that's a nice tight, that's a much better seal than what was in there, that's for sure. Alright, this is done. The shifter seal is in set, put inside. The little washer that goes around seals out some debris and dirt, and then the split ring that goes on it. Last thing to do here is go ahead and install the shifter back. I made some notes about where it went, and according to I've got to take the bolt out to get it even on. It's okay. According to the manual, it's one tooth from center, from vertical. One tooth from vertical, and those line up great. I don't know if there's a torque spec on this per se, but tight. Hand tight, and you'll feel it kind of bottom out. Alright. I have this ring seal in stock. I'm going to go ahead and replace that. Matter of fact, I might put that on tonight. Take the old one off and wipe it clean. What do we got for that? How about something like this? I'm going to clean this up nice. Clean out the well, the groove for the ring. Oil it a little bit, grease it a little bit, and go ahead and insert a new ring into it. And I'll do that right away so I don't forget. Alright, so inside the recess here. Alright, done. That's all done. Ready to go. Okay.